Well, after a slow start, the truth finally catches up to Barry, and a shocking reveal that everyone kind of saw coming. Hey guys, remember The Flash, Season 3, Episode 7, Killer Frost, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I actually really enjoyed last week's. I know a lot of people didn't, but I thought last week's episode was really well done. Was there misuse of Shade, that villain? Yeah, he did absolutely nothing in this. He was very ineffective last week, but I like where we were headed with Wally. I like that we went in that direction, and damn did that pay off in this episode, because this episode, if you're looking for payoff, that is the exact definition of this episode. This episode, in general, is just payoff, payoff, payoff. Some of the best The Flash has done. I think this is one of the best episodes The Flash has done. This episode was extremely intense. It was very frantic. It was very surprising what was going to happen. And despite the ending, which I'm not going to lie, kind of pisses me off, although I do kind of have hopes for where we're going, I really did love pretty much everything about this episode. By far, best episode of the season, without a doubt. I mean, this is the first episode of the season that I've truly been into the show. I mean, I wouldn't say I haven't been into the show this season, but I will definitely say that the need to watch this show and, the urge I usually get, or the, the type of like, oh, I'm going to watch The Flash, can't wait for this episode, it's kind of waning. This season does not have that watchability, in my opinion. It's not that it's a bad season, but it's not a season that like, oh, I need to watch this right now. It's like, no, I can wait a little bit. That's kind of how I've been with this season. However, this episode, that was definitely not the case. I loved pretty much everything about it. I thought there was so much interesting stuff going on this one, and let's just get right into it, because I'm going to stop rambling and get right into this one. Which, like I said, was pretty much like a payoff episode for Barry, which I thought was really well done. Basically, every single complaint we addressed, Barry is addressed in this episode, and that's something I definitely really did like. A lot of people have complained about that, but let's just get right into it. So we start off, and we start off right where we left off last week. We see the Flash. He's caught in the clutches of Savitar, and he's pinned against the subway walls. The huge evil speedster tells the hero that he is the god of speed, which, if that's what we're dealing with, that's a much different kind of villain. And Joe wrestles free of two of Alchemy's followers, and although he can't see what's holding Barry, he fires blindly in the general direction, just showing that he still cares about Barry. And even though he hits Savitar, the bullet seems to have little to no effect, so it seems that Savitar is definitely not human. Like, definitely Savitar is some sort of creature. What? I don't know, but he's definitely some sort of creature, and Savitar tells Flash that he's going to take him on a race, and he races all over the city so fast it's even a blur to Barry, and he seems faster than Zoom. Like, he seems like this is someone who Barry just can't beat no matter what he does, and I think overall that was very interesting to see, and I think it very well set up the episode. But back at Star Labs, Team Flash is trying to monitor Barry's movements, but they're confused by the speed. Savitar stops at the waterfront. He begins to beat Barry, who it seems is no match for the giant silver monster. I mean, Barry seems completely ineffective against him, and that I thought was very interesting too. We really haven't had someone like that before, and I like that Savitar right now, Barry can't seem to beat at all. So HR suggests that Cisco and Caitlin use their powers, because, he knows that they are also metahumans and that they can do things and help Barry fight whatever it is he's being beaten up by. And Iris asks Cisco to use his powers to open a portal to the waterfront. Caitlin starts to say it's too dangerous, but Iris pleads for her to help Barry. And back at the waterfront, Savitar is getting ready to finish the Flash off when Cisco and Caitlin arrive. Caitlin uses her powers to free Savitar, making him finally invisible and stopping him. And he lets go of the Flash, and after a few moments breaks free of the ice, speeds off. Cisco checks on Barry, and Barry's just cold after being exposed to the ice. So it seems that they really haven't helped him much at all. I was waiting for Cisco to vibe on him, but I get why that wasn't the right time to do that. I mean, what could he vibe? Like, there wasn't really anything to show except Barry possibly being dead. There was really nothing he could vibe. So back at Star Labs, Caitlin's taking care of both her patients, and I like seeing Caitlin be a doctor, because the thing I really loved about this episode is not just Killer Frost herself, because yeah, it was really cool seeing Caitlin doing her Killer Frost thing. The main thing I really loved is, one, the payoff. Two, it really reminds us why Caitlin is so essential to this team. Why we have Caitlin around, what we lose when she's not here, and what she really provides. Which is something I feel the show hasn't really done a ton. She seems to always be the one, she's got the computers, she's saying some sort of scientific, mumbo-jumbo, but other than that, we haven't really had a ton with her, and I feel like this season they're really utilizing her very well, which I am very happy about. Caitlin, I feel, has always been a very underused character, and this definitely is not the case this season. I love what they're doing with her. So she tells Cisco he shouldn't try to travel via portal anytime soon because his brain's reacting to same as if it had a mini stroke. So I like that Cisco is just as affected. He should just take a couple of aspirin and he'll be fine. And Barry thanks Caitlin for saving his life. She reminds him that he saved her many times, and Caitlin checks on Wally, who's still in the cocoon after touching the stone. She walks out of the room. Her eyes flash crystal blue for a few seconds, and obviously, we know she's about to turn into Killer Frost, and the way they build up her being Killer Frost, that was really well done. Now, Joe wants to cut Wally out, but Caitlin shoots the idea down by saying it might be too dangerous to Wally. Joe heads out, upset and resentful this is happening to Wally. He goes to interrogate the captured follower of Alchemy, and the loyal follower says that when his master rises, the humorist will be judged, and he will not fare well. And this is basically, essentially, a warning of what's going to happen when Alchemy rises, and this is just before Joe starts squeezing his already busted nose, and Joe's in pretty intense scene, let me just say. But Joe's interrupted by Caitlin, who tells him that Wally is out of the cocoon, he's doing okay, and he should talk to his son. So as Joe exits, Caitlin slips into the interrogation room, and avoiding the security camera, Caitlin uses her powers to freeze and destroy it. So she asks the follower how she can find Alchemy, and you know she wants to find Alchemy in some way. Now, not getting the answer she wants, she uses her powers to torment the acolyte, who screams out in pain, causing the detectives to start banging out on the door, and realizing that she needs to leave unseen. She used her powers to make a thick, frosty mist in the room, so that when the detectives enter, they don't see her slip out, and she seals the door shut with them inside, and just a really well-done scene for all the way that was done. Let me just add, this is some of the most intense stuff we've had in The Flash in a while, but she's almost out when Julian sees her in the hallway, asks her to stop, and this by far was Julian's best episode. Like, Tom Felton, I really feel like he's getting into this character. It's taken him a little bit, definitely. It's a bit of a rocky start to him because we're so used to him being Draco Malfoy. This is a very different kind of role, but I loved seeing Tom Felton in this episode. I think he's really adjusting well to the show, and that's why I'm kind of bummed out at what the twist is, but we'll get into that. Either way, he sees her in the hallway, asks her to stop. He notices the frozen door, turns back to see Caitlin with now crystal blue eyes with white locks mixed in. She basically looks like Killer Frost with her brunette hair, her hands steaming from cold ice. And Caitlin says in a cold and threatening voice that he needs to come with her. So Joe returns to Star Lab to see that Caitlin lied to him about Wally, who's still in the cocoon. Barry raises the CCPD, finds out from a detective that Julian was actually kidnapped by a female meta, but they don't know her identity and are searching for her. So Barry knows right off the bat who this is. He goes back to Star Labs. HR gets Cisco to remember how they track Captain Cold, using the satellite to track temperature drops, which is true. If they can track Captain Cold, they can most definitely, track Killer Frost. And they do the same thing. They find Kate in a cold food storage facility. The Flash races over while Cisco and the gang monitor from base. And Caitlin makes Julian actually do a trace on the internet to find one of Alchemy's followers, that being Savitar. And he finds two of the clues that Caitlin gave him. She starts to think about what she's doing. Her eyes then go back to being that the brown, brown and everything. She says out loud to herself, what is she doing? And I love the fact that she does not know what she's doing when she's Killer Frost. Like, it's kind of like how the Hulk is, or how just any villain who loses their memory, any sort of superhero who loses their memory. I think it's interesting that she herself does not remember what happens when she is Killer Frost. I think that overall is a very interesting direction to go in, and Julian decides to use computer to send a message to the CCPD asking for help, giving his location, because obviously he's freaking out. Caitlin realizes what he's up to, destroys the computer. She's about to use her powers on Julian when the Flash speeds in, stands in front of Julian, tells her to stop, she warns him to leave, and Julian tells him to stop her, but the Flash knocks Julian out instead, and now it's just the two of them, and you don't know really what's going to happen there, but I thought the way this scene was done was really cool. I did like the way that she was trying to get Julian to find Savitar. You didn't really know what was going to happen there, if he was actually going to be able to find Savitar in the nick of time. But it's just the two of them. Barry asks Caitlin what she's doing and pleads for her to let him help her. And it's been a while since I think these two have had genuinely a lot of scenes. I mean, I remember back in season 1, everyone was actually shipping Barry and Caitlin. They were shipping, Alan Snow or something like that. I don't really remember what they were called. Something like that. But people were shipping these two. And ever since then, they really have not done a ton of stuff, really. I don't feel like they've done really anything with Barry and Caitlin. They gave Caitlin stuff to do with Jay and everything, but they really didn't utilize her and Barry well. But now that Jay's gone, now they're really focusing more on these two, and it reminds us how great chemistry I think Grant Gustin and Daniel Pagan Baker really have, because they have really great chemistry. We see... So Barry asks Caitlin what she's doing and pleads for her to let him help her. And she tells Barry that she wants to find Alchemy not because she wants to join his team and be one of his followers, but it's because he can take her powers away. If he can give people powers, he can also, make them lose their powers, she feels. She wants to get rid of them completely, and you understand why. I mean, she does not like what she's becoming. Remember, she's prepared to leave, and this was really, I was very happy they went this direction, because like I said last week, I was worried that they were writing Caitlyn out of the show, and I still kind of feel like they are, but I really hope that's not the case, because I love where we're headed with this storyline. Everything about it's one of the best things the Flash has done, so I really hope we're not going that direction. But Team Flash listening back at base feels bad for Caitlyn, and Barry says that he doesn't think that's how it works, and Caitlyn says that he doesn't know that it doesn't, and says that they've been through so much together to let each other down now. Please and says to let him help her. He genuinely wants to help her, and she replies if that's like how he helped his mother. And Kay reminds Barry he keeps messing with everyone's lives, and this is where we get the stuff that I know everyone really wants me to talk about. Because she talks about how he keeps messing with everyone's lives, and they're left to pick up the pieces because of his mistakes, and that very much is true. I mean, through the past 2 seasons, Barry's been doing stuff for his own benefit. He says he's doing it for his mother, but in general, he's caused a lot of it. And she then tells Cisco is listening back at Star Labs, so all this is happening because of Barry creating Flashpoint, and that's the reason his brother Dante's dead. That's how that whole thing happened, and that was something that at the time I thought was a bit abrupt, but now it makes sense why they went this direction, because Barry's both hurt, he's taken aback by her behavior, but he knows it's her powers messing with her mind, which I don't really think is true. I mean, I think she genuinely feels this way. She's upset about it, and this is why CCPD and SWAT shows up, starts to fire upon Caitlyn. The Flash leads out of the room with Caitlyn. Caitlyn creates a large icicle, stabs Barry in the triceps, telling him even with his fast hearing, it'll be a few hours before he will be up to full speed again. She leaves telling him not to follow her, that she's going to do this on her own, and I think part of this is Killer Frost, and part of this is, I think, how she genuinely feels. Like, she's very upset at Barry, and Cisco's obviously very upset, but he wants focus on finding Caitlyn. He hacks Julian's computer and finds the 2 names and address of Alchemy followers that Caitlyn is sure to visit. Cisco tells Barry to stay put because he's wounded, saying he's done enough, and he will stake out one of the locations while HR and Joe stake out the other. So Joe and HR are sitting out in Joe's car watching for Caitlyn. HR starts talking, and what I like with this episode that we did actually have time to breathe. This wasn't one of those episodes where we didn't have a second to breathe. Like, there was stuff going on, but there was still time for breathing room, and that's what makes a really great episode, is when you have equal time for breathing room and intense stuff. That makes a really great episode. And HR talks about, realize that Joe's worried about Wally being the cocoon and possibly coming out with powers but evil, and HR tells Joe how much Barry respects and looks up to him, which leads Joe saying that Barry needs to listen to him more. This causes HR to tell Joe that Barry's real superpower is not his speed, but his hope. The hope he inspires now. He always seems to believe he'll be able to work everything out okay in the end, and yeah, I think HR really is onto something there, because that's really the thing that's made Barry who he is. That's why Barry always believes in going back and changing things, because he will do whatever he can to make sure he has said hope. And again, it's a very small scene between Joe and HR, but probably the best scene HR has had. HR, up to this point, I haven't been the hugest fan of. I think he's fun. I like everything about him, but I think he just really isn't had what, the original Harrison Wells or Wells 2 had, and now I think this HR really is doing a good job. Tom Cavanaugh, they're giving him some really great scenes, and they're still utilizing him very well as an actor, and this is a very good example of that. And I like the way that these two are bonding, even though HR doesn't have a son personally, because Joe almost doesn't want to talk to him, but because he doesn't have a son, he still sees that Hope and Barry, as does everyone, but that's also not necessarily a good thing, as we see in this episode. So Caitlyn shows up at the house that Cisco is staking at, and Barry and Iris get an alert from the satellite back at base. Caitlyn confronts the Alchemy follower, telling him if he doesn't answer her question, she will hurt him and his family. He tells her that he doesn't know who Alchemy is, but reveals that it's really Savitar who's the mastermind behind this all. So that really changes things a little bit. It's kind of like what Arrow did, where we thought that Church was going to be the villain, but it turned out to be Prometheus, and that's kind of what's going on here, that it seems that Savitar is actually the leader here, and he tells Caitlyn that Savitar showed him the future, and she was there, so glorious and powerful, and that his master has big plans for her. So I am convinced that either Savitar, he has some sort of connection to the Legends, where he's able to time travel, or that he's from Earth 2. One of those two possibilities. I don't know which one is true, but I think that definitely, we're going back to Earth 2 in some way this year. I mean, it has to happen. We had Earth 2 so much last year, I can't help but think we're going back to Earth 2, but either way, He tells Kane that Savitar show him the future, and this partly scares and intrigues Kane. She's losing her inner struggle to keep Killer Frost under control, but she also wants to know how powerful she becomes being. How can you not be intrigued by that? And basically, she hears Cisco call her from outside, goes out to face him, and Caitlin says that he's brought his toys, looking and sounding more like Killer Frost than herself now. Cisco tells her that he doesn't want to fight and just wants to help her, and I like the way that Cisco was the one to kind of take her out of this. She warns him that she's Killer Frost now, and he says she's Caitlin Snow, to which she begins to hurl deadly icicles at him. It appears she's not really aiming at him, but just kind of near him, and it does show she has some of her still left in, and Cisco takes her behind a tree, tries to use his energy vibe to knock her down, but misses, and the Flash arrives with a bit of a limp and draws her fire. Killer Frost ices the street, so he loses control, ends up falling right in front of her, and she has the leg, and the Flash knocks her down with using his injured leg, lying on the street next to each other. Killer Frost says that was cool, but not as cool, but that was cold Flash, but not as cool as this. She gets up onto Barry, straddles him, delivers a deadly icy kiss, which apparently was a reference to Batman Returns, which I do in fact remember that scene. Everyone remembers the scene where Michelle Pfeiffer kisses Batman and, you know, a Catwoman sex scene and everything. That very much is like Killer Frost a lot, but Cisco runs up. He vibes another shot at her, this time hitting her, knocking her off Barry, and Cisco tells Barry to vibrate because we'll warm up, and it works, and I like the way that that's actually helps Barry warm up. I thought that was interesting to see. But back at Star Labs, Caitlin then wakes up in a cell. She tries to act like she's herself again, but her voice, crystal blue eyes, and white locks give away she's still Killer Frost. She then becomes verbally vicious, especially towards Barry, saying how for a hero, he sure does let a lot of people close to him die. Bring up Eddie and Ronnie, and again, I think some of her still believes this. I think this Killer Frost, it's actually more of Caitlin. This is Caitlin's true self. It's not that this is deviating from Caitlin. It is, in fact, Caitlin's true self. And what I mean by that is that while Caitlin, you know, obviously isn't evil, she does have these really dark fears in her and definitely has some hatred for Barry. And I like the way that that came out here. I like the way that came out here. I like the way that that finally, you know, no longer subdued. All of those things that we've been talking about finally came out, and I think that's something that Killer Frost brings out. It brings out all of your evil. It brings out all of your fears, and really just all of your hatred against him when it comes out. And I think that's something that was shown very well here. But Barry, being Barry, still thinks that her power is affecting her mind and that she's sick. She replies she's broken, which causes Cisco to tear up, and Barry looking away, feeling guilty. And I like that Barry actually does feel sympathetic. Like, he gets that this is his fault. He gets that he messed up here, and I like that, because I think a lot of people have said that they don't like what Barry's become, and I like that this showed that Barry genuinely does care. That he definitely, I mean, these are his friends. You know, he will do anything for them, and I really did like seeing that. I like that Barry does genuinely care here. And basically Barry tells her that they're not abandoning her. She yells at him and basically tells him that he did this to her. He closed the door, locks her in. He goes up to sulk, but Iris won't let him. And we get this really great scene between Barry and Iris, who I really feel they have not utilized that well. This is by far their best scene of this season, without a doubt. I love this scene. It reminds us how great Grant Gustin and Candace Patton work together. She tells him that none of this might actually be his fault. Caitlin might have developed these powers without Flashpoint, and she also tells him that even though he doesn't feel like it, they need him to lead. He needs to be a leader, and that's when an alarm goes off, and she even provides the fact that this stuff might have still happened. Maybe Caitlin might have been affected by the particle accelerator. Maybe, Dante might have died in a car crash. This might not necessarily be Barry's fault, which, yeah, it kind of is for the time being, but that doesn't mean this stuff might not have still happened. I mean, definitely there's a possibility it could have still happened, and I like that she brought that up, because she's not wrong. I mean, yeah, this stuff definitely could have happened before. I like that she said that here, and basically, she also tells him even though he doesn't feel like it, they need him to lead. That's when an alarm goes off. Cisco, Barry, and Iris rush in the room where their cocoon holding Wally is, and to see Joe and HR, they're trying to cut him out of it. Barry yells for Joe to stop, but he doesn't. Barry, realizing the cocoon's about to explode, speeds everyone away just in time, and after smoke clears, Wally's saying they're vibrating at different speeds, looking lost. He then speeds out and is gone. So we don't know where Wally's gone, and Barry knows that Wally's going to need a biochemist, so Caitlin is the only one who can help. And again, this is what I'm talking about. They need Caitlin because she's the biochemist. She knows how all this stuff works, but unfortunately, they can't use her right now. And he tells Caitlin/Frost what happened with Wally, and that he's going to need Caitlin Snow, MD, to help him. And She asks if he came there to talk some sense into her, and he says he came to let her go. He unlocks the cell door. Frost, uneasy and distrustful, steps out and says, for a smart guy, that was an awfully dumb move. And she says he says that she's free to go. She asks what the catch is, and he says that the catch is that she has to kill him. And this alarms Iris, but Cisco tells her he thinks it's going to be okay. And Frost asks if the Flash wants to fight her. He tells her no, he's not going to fight her, but if she wants to leave this room, she is going to have to kill him. And basically, she snarls that she won't. Barry says, then do it. And finally, he gets into her mind. And the way he was able to get into her mind and basically just let every dark fear, like I said, come out and finally get her to admit that she doesn't really want to be this. She creates an icicle. She points it directly at Barry's heart, and Barry asks her what she's waiting for. Killer Frost begins to look unsure and uncomfortable, and he says, come on, live up to her name. He wants to see some killing. He actually is trying to tell her to kill. He says that she's looking now worried and weak. Barry says if she insists on being evil, then she has to kill her friends because nothing matters anymore. And he continues to say, come on, kill him, and he grabs her arm, pulls the icicle closer to his heart. She tries to pull it a little, and her face shows her starting to look sad. He says she can't do this. She can because underneath all that cold, she's still her. And Caitlin's eyes change from crystal blue back to brown. He actually does get her to go back to her true self, and she drops the icicle. She bursts into tears, collapses into Barry's arms, says his name. He's telling her it's okay, that he's got her. It's just a really powerful scene overall. The way he was able to subdue her, I really did love. One of the most powerful scenes we've had with Barry and Caitlin, I think, ever, and I think it's just a really great showing the just a really good showing how great their friendship's been. I really did like that, and again, showing what was at stake there. The fact that Barry could have died, I thought was really well done. I really did love that overall, and I thought they did a really good job with that scene, definitely. So Caitlin changes back into Doctor Mode. She creates a neural compound for Barry to inject into Wally, which will get his mind and body linked up correctly. And with a little help from Joe, who figured out that Wally's at his old home, it actually works. The next day, Wally speeds around the training area, Star Labs, happy now that he's a speedster. He's anxious to go out with Barry to help fight crime, and he's now a speedster. And I like this. I like that Wally is actually a speedster now, because it gives him something to do. There's no more of him trying to figure out, what his purpose is and wanting to help Barry, but he can't do that. That was annoying. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. It was genuinely kind of annoying that they did that. And I like that now he is in fact a speedster. He can do what he wanted to do. He can fulfill his purpose. And I can't wait to see Barry and Wally work together, because that's something I've been looking forward to seeing. Joe and Iris tell him to slow down, and that first Caitlin needs to run tests on him to make sure he's okay. Joe asks if she's up for it, and she answers, being a doctor always. Joe gets a buzz. The Julian's awake at the hospital, and Caitlin says that he knows she kidnapped him. Barry tells her it'll be alright, and I don't know how she remembered this. I mean, I guess that she remembered part of this because she did crack at one point, but he convinced her not to inform on her, and he said it's going to be okay. She smiles back, trusting Barry to protect her, and on his way out, Barry visits Cisco, asks if he wants to talk, but Cisco says no. Barry tells him he's his best friend, asks if they're going to be okay. Cisco answers honestly and tells him he doesn't know. He really doesn't know if this is going to be okay. Now knowing that Barry was in fact the reason why Dante was killed, I mean, now it's very different. I mean, sure, Cisco was mad at Barry, in the beginning because Barry wasn't there and he didn't go back in time to save Dante. That's a completely different scenario. This is something completely different. Like, having Barry be the source of why Dante was killed is a completely different scenario, and I really don't know if it's gonna fix things between Barry and Cisco. I mean, I know that those two are going out to, fix the alien situation next week with the Dominators. They're gonna be the two that we see next week, but I don't really know if this is gonna change much. I don't really know where that's gonna go. I think that's gonna be very interesting. But we get this great scene where Barry visits Julian at the hospital, telling him he'll do anything he does and tell detectives that Caitlin kidnapped him. He implores Julian to do him this favor, saying that she's a good person and one of the best he knows. And Barry tries to convince Julian that Caitlin doesn't deserve to be punished. And Julian says he thinks he got knocked out harder than he thought. He really doesn't remember much. And it turns out, however, that his silence does come with a price. He demands that Barry quit his job as a CSI, saying that he has no business being in law enforcement, says he's choosing his friends over justice. And Barry agrees to the deal, lingers in earshot to make sure Julian keeps his end of the bargain when the detective interviews him, and he actually leaves. He packs up his stuff. Iris and Joe come in asking what happened and why he resigned. Barry tells him about the deal he struck with Julian, and this changes a lot, really. The fact that he just resigned, I think it's going to change a big part of the show. There aren't going to be as much of a need to go after metahumans, I think. And Iris and Joe are upset. Barry calms them down by telling them that there isn't anything he wouldn't do or give up to keep them, and it's just this really powerful scene. Seeing Barry care a lot about his friends, I thought was just really well done here, telling him that there's nothing he wouldn't do for them, and he said he'd literally give up his entire life for them. I mean, you really do see that Barry does care. Wally, Kane, and Cisco are safe, and they leave to get dinner, and as Barry carries his personal items out of his lab, lightning strikes outside, and then we get to a sort of reveal where we see Julian. He's still in the hospital, he hears a voice, and he starts running. He's trying to get away from the voice. He heads outside, sees Savitar, tells him he needs to be his prophet, and we realize that Julian's actually Dr. Alchemy, to the shock of no one. So a very easy reveal, but let's just get into the episode overall and where I think the rest of the season's gonna go. So, wow, really one episode. I think this was definitely the redemption episode for The Flash. I think even though, like, this was the redemption episode for Barry and the episode that addressed most of Barry's complaints, this was, in fact, the redemption episode for the show, because we really haven't had an episode that great, I think, since season 2's episode, with the finale of season 2. I don't really think we've had a great episode since then. All the other episodes of the season, they've been great, but they haven't really been, they haven't really had anything, everything was great. We really had, something has felt off this entire season, and this was the first episode where everything just felt on. I was so into it. I loved everything going on this episode. But now let's talk about the reveal of Julian, because no, it's not a shock. I think if anyone would have told me, who do you think Dr. Alchemy is, I would have said Julian, and everyone said that. Everyone said that he's probably going to be the villain, and yeah, he is the villain. But to me, it seems like Julian kind of regrets doing what he's doing. He's kind of being forced by Savitar to do this. Now, my big question is, why did Savitar take him over the other guy? I can't remember his name. You guys remember the character from episodes 1 to 2. I can't remember his name right now, but you know what I'm talking about. Why did he take Julian over him? What exactly happened there? How did Julian become Dr. Alchemy? That's still stuff that we don't know, but it seems like Savitar is the big threat this season, and it makes sense. I mean, he's the god of speed. He's the one that obviously Barry can't outrun the god of speed, so that's definitely going to be very interesting. We know what the Speed Force is. We've seen the Speed Force before, and I think Savitar kind of is the center of it all, and I think they kind of did a good job in teasing that that was going to be our main threat this season. If that's really what's going on, I think that's interesting. Now, my thinking here is that Savitar, Dr. Alchemy was in fact in the Flashpoint that Barry created. Now, Savitar probably sent Dr. Alchemy out there to make sure that to make this as bad as possible, so Barry's forced to get things back to the way they were. Because, again, if he's a god of speed, he's basically in control of fixing things. And maybe I don't know if that's where the Time Masters come in, but that definitely, I think, is going to be very interesting to see. I can't wait to see the way that this turns out. Because, again, there's so much they can do with Julian as a character. I hope that they don't just take him into a villain direction. I'm hoping that they do kind of a Punisher type thing with Julian, or kind of like a Ghost Rider thing, where he does bad things, but he's not a bad person. I'm hoping that they do that, because I want to see this character stay. I really like Tom Felton. I think he's really adjusted well to this cast in these 7 episodes, and I don't want him to go really early. I like where they're headed with him overall. But if Savitar is the one that told him to tell Barry to resign, I'm going to be really upset. I'm hoping that this was Julian's actual demand. Julian generally wanted to do this. And the fact that Barry left, I completely understand. Julian does not really want Barry to work there if he wants to give his friends and not really focus on criminal justice and not atone for what he did. I can totally understand why Julian doesn't want him there. And I was looking forward to seeing these two work together, but it's going to be interesting to see Barry not be a police, be a forensic scientist and work at CCPD. We're so used to see him be that detective, see what's going on there. Now that we're not seeing that, well, not detective, but work at CCPD, now that we're not going to see that, though, it's going to be really interesting to see where he ends up doing when he's not the Flash, because I don't really know at this point. I think that's going to be interesting. My bigger question is Barry and Cisco. There's a lot of damage going on within that relationship, a lot of friction there. Barry, it's going to take a while, I think, for Cisco to forgive him, because while Barry, did in fact do it for good intentions, he still did allegedly get, he allegedly did get Dante killed. So it totally makes sense why Cisco is allowed to be pissed at him. I think Cisco definitely has a right to be upset at Barry for what he did, and I can totally understand why. It definitely does make sense, and it's sad to see, definitely. I did definitely feel bad for Barry in this instance. I felt bad for Barry, but I also feel bad for Cisco, because Barry, he didn't mean to get Dante killed, but at the same time, Cisco lost his brother, someone who's very important to him. I thought that we were going to get to the reveal of Dante being Dr. Alchemy, but I like that's not where we're going. I think the show would get a bit too heavy hand. The Flash has always remained to be not a grounded show, but more of a fun show, and I don't like it when it gets too dark. When the Flash gets too dark, the show kind of gets boring. I'm not going to say it gets boring, but it's not as interesting as when it's just dark, 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 dark. You know, that happened last season. It kind of killed a lot of last season, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen this season. I don't think it's going to happen, but we'll have to see. I think that definitely is going to be interesting. And now Caitlin. My other question is Caitlin. Caitlin, is she still going to be Killer Frost? I'm hoping that she is, because again, they did so much great stuff with her here. I'm hoping that this keeps up throughout this entire season, and that her being Killer Frost is a genuine thing that she has to go through, because I don't think it's just gone. I don't think that she's, done with being Killer Frost, but again, I don't know. We'll have to see. I have this feeling that she is, but we'll have to see, definitely. I think that's going to be interesting. And then Wally, I like that Wally's officially a speedster. It's about time that he finally gets to do what he was utilized to do. I like the way they're really using him very well. But overall, guys, really did love this episode. Can't wait for next week's crossover. I have no idea how any of this is going to work for next week's crossover. I honestly have no idea. Like Supergirl, yeah, I can see that working, because there's stuff going on, but there's not like a ton going on. The Flash, there's so much going on. I don't know how we're gonna get to next week's crossover. I really don't. Arrow, I have no idea either. Legends, I haven't kept up with for 3 episodes, so I have no idea how that's gonna go either. I will catch up. I will get caught up to that at some other point. I don't know when, but either way, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Loved your thoughts on it. There's no Arrow, there's no Legends this week, so this is the last of the crossover shows that we're going to see this week, but definitely a really good way to go out before the crossover. Definitely looking forward to next week's crossover. A little bit worried, too. It does look a bit overstuffed, but I like that it's longer. I will definitely say, I didn't talk about this in Supergirl, but I like that we have 4 nights. I think something it's always felt like, oh, it's over. Like, you have one night, and then, oh, it all ends tomorrow. That's not how it is this time. There's 4 nights, and it lasts almost the entire week, and there's stuff to look forward to every single day, until Friday, which I don't know if they're going to get a CW show on Friday that's a DC show, but it's bound to happen, definitely. But either way, that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Absolutely love this episode. One of the best episodes The Flash has done, in my opinion. And I will see you guys in my next review, which will be for either Scream Queens, Teen Wolf, or movie review. I don't know which one's going to happen first. It's going to be one of those things, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.